Another of my favorite things, Notre Dame football. And if you were a fan of Notre Dame football in the 1960s, I was. And you, like me, may remember this famous return of a Purdue kickoff. Take a look. There we go. All-American Nick Eddy went on to lead the Fighting Irish in that game to the 1966 National Championship. And although he missed that game of the century against Michigan State, Nick Eddy was third in the Heisman Trophy voting that year. And the legend himself is on the phone to talk about that and much, much more, joining us from California. As we actually now we're seeing the kickoff on there. Nick, I have to also tell you before we get started here, Nick, that I'm also grew up in the Detroit area and a big fan of the Detroit Lions. I used to watch you when you were playing with them too. So thanks for joining us today on Notre Dame Day.
My pleasure.
Nick, you grew up in California. How in the world did Notre Dame pull you away from USC?
Well, I was always a Notre Dame fan growing up, listening to the games on the radio at that time. I was born and raised here in Northern California. And my father was actually a Notre Dame fan, and so we listened to the radio, listened to the games on the radio at that time, remote area of California. And when it came time in high school, all of a sudden colleges were starting to come around, and a couple of coaches that I played against actually made contacts. They had contact back there with the coach at the time, Joe Perry was the name, and he sent a coach out here to recruit me, a coach by the name of Dick Stanfeld, who's a famous player from the United San Francisco heydays of football in the mid-50s. And Stan went on to NFL glory and is now going into the Hall of Fame this year. Mm-hmm. And so he came out and did a nice job of supporting my mother, who's a single parent, and myself, and made us feel comfortable. Never did take a trip to the campus that year, and they called me and said my SAT scores were good and they just needed the green light for me. I said, I'm on my way. Then I found out where Notre Dame was. I thought everything was in California, growing up here in California. I thought it was in Indiana, 1,800 miles away. I thought, oh my God. Yeah. And so then I don't know if I could go that far away. And being an only child, I told my mom, I don't think so. My mom said, no. First time in my life, I think maybe the only time, where she made me get on the airplane to fly back there, and the rest is history.
Well, we certainly are glad that you made the choice that you did, and you ended up at Notre Dame with your great career here, and then in the pros and as well. Take us back to the game of the century, though, if you would. 1966, there was that 10-10 tie. Unfortunately, you had an injury that kept you on the sideline. Tell us about that and how difficult it was to not be able to play in that historic game.
Yes, it was very difficult, for sure. We had a great season. It all started with the kickoff against Purdue, actually. Kind of kick-started our season in the first game at Notre Dame Stadium this season. And we just had a couple other big showdowns. And Michigan State had a great team as well. And went to East Lansing on that November day, November 19th, I think it was, on 1966. We took a train from South Bend to East Lansing, and it was just a terrific experience. It's like something you see in the movies, people were standing along the railways with signs, Go Irish, and we're number one, all that kind of stuff. And for about a 2-hour ride up to East Lansing, and 2 weeks previous to that, we played Pittsburgh, and late in the second half, I was tackled, and the pile kind of fell on top of me, and I landed on my right shoulder, and it injured my right shoulder and partially dislocated it. And so I had to kind of nurse it. And then the following week we played Duke at Notre Dame Stadium. And fortunately, the third play of the game, they gave the ball to me, and I was able to run a 71-yard touchdown right up the middle. And my line, which did a great job for me that year. We had
Yeah.
Great
And
players.
Nick, also you played a big part in the 51-0 victory over USC that helped clinch the national title for the Irish, and overcame a lot of adversity along the way all through your life. In the last couple of minutes there, I want to turn to what you've done later in your career, because you've recently sort of made a career change. You were in business and insurance, a lot of things, but now you're working with special needs children. Tell us about that.
Sure. I had an opportunity to, when my kids moved here to Modesto, California, where I live now. Moved here, our kids were enrolled in Catholic schools here, and I was a volunteer coach and always had a way of having a good rapport with the kids, and so I always kind of enjoyed being around young people. And then I had an opportunity to listen and meet General Colin Powell, who was promoting his book at the time. After he got out of politics, and at a local university here, they had him here, and I had a chance to go down and meet him and get his book signed. And then he gave a speech, and in his speech, I went and looked into it and started teaching at different grade levels to see if I could handle it or if I liked it. And sure enough, I ended up getting a job. A friend of mine whose son I had actually coached at Central Catholic High School here in Modesto was a running back, got a full scholarship to Santa Clara University. He got the job as a principal at a junior high here in the area where I live, and called me up one day, a couple of days before school started, and said, "We're having a meeting, and I hear you're subbing. Could you help me out till I hire somebody?" And I said, "Sure." Sure enough, it was 7th and 8th grade kids, and there was a special ed class. And so I was there for about 3 weeks, and he came in one day and asked me if I would continue to do it full time. And I said, "What do you have to do?" He said, "Well, you're going to have to go get your teaching credential."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, what does that mean?" Going back to school.
Yeah.
Like, I've been out 50 years. And I said, "It's a big commitment." So I said, "I'll talk to my wife about it." She said, "Whatever you want to do, because our kids have grown, gone, and be nesting it."
Mm-hmm.
Went on to a later stage in our life. And
Well, Nick, we're certainly glad that you made that choice, and as the father of a special needs youngster myself, I really appreciate the great work that you're doing, and we thank you for being with us here today on Notre Dame Day, sharing not only that experience, but also those great memories from that '66 season and the others when you were at Notre Dame. Nick Eddy, thanks again for being with us today.